What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we want to welcome you to another edition of the Cowboys Midweek Report right here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Appreciate all of you who are joining us live. It is Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. It is Veterans Day. We want to wish a very happy Veterans Day to all of the brave men and women who have served our great country. Now let's talk about the country's team, America's team, and the Dallas Cowboys are 2-7. They are on their bye, and there's no game this week, but the Masters is going on, so we've got that at least. And it's weird because I feel like we're in a place where optimism is existent. I don't even want to say optimism is high, but the fact that there is optimism at all surrounding the Cowboys is a really interesting spot given the team that we have watched for a few months to this point. But so the Cowboys are 2-7 and one of the worst teams in the NFL, and we really don't know what to make of them. We haven't seen them win a game in forever. In fact, the last time the Cowboys won a game was the day that Dak Prescott went down against the New York Giants, and that's really hard to fathom in a lot of different ways. And I know the last 2 weeks have kind of felt like hollow wins, like moral victories, if you want to call them that. There's some people that are opposed to the idea of moral victories. But something interesting. The first thing we're going to get into today, Brandon Graham, Philadelphia Eagles defensive end. It was 2 weeks ago, as mentioned, the Cowboys kind of showed a bit of a backbone for the first time so far this season, really for the first time under Mike McCarthy. When the Cowboys were in Philadelphia taking on the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, the Ben DiNucci game, we all saw it, we all lived it. It was horrible. And Brandon Graham, speaking to ESPN, kind of bragged about this. I'm kind of curious. We've got the clip up for you to read, but this is from the ESPN article that Tim McManus wrote. Cowboys backup quarterback Ben DiNucci was struggling in his first career start. Graham noticed Cooper, talking about Amari Cooper, beginning to sag in the midst of an unproductive day. 1 catch, 5 yards. We all know that Amari Cooper did not have a great game there. So Graham, an elite and relentless trash talker, turned his attention to the star wideout, telling him he might as well hang up the cleats and get ready for next week because his efforts were futile. The article goes on to quote Brandon Graham, "I knew the rap sheet on him. His body language is bad. So when you see his body language, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to get him. So I started talking to him," Graham told ESPN, beginning to burst into laughter. "He was gone. He's like, man, I can't wait until Dak Prescott gets back." That's the type of face he had. Okay, Brandon, is your point here that Amari Cooper would rather play with Dak Prescott? I mean, this is just such a weird thing to me. This is a really weird flex. And I want to say I'm a fan of rivalries, and I'm a fan of hating your division rivals, and so I'm a fan of there being bad blood between the Cowboys and Eagles. That makes it more fun, right, when we watch the game. Obviously, it's not fun this year for obvious reasons, but this is the reach of all reaches. Amari Cooper is, as you likely know if you have followed the Cowboys for the last 2 years, one of the most quiet players in the NFL, and so, I mean, going off his body line, I mean, again, the Cowboys have quit in a lot of ways, or had quit at least, I should say. But this came out today on the day that we're talking on Wednesday, and I just was kind of stunned that Brandon Graham thought this was some point of pride, that he told Amari Cooper, guess what? That guy that's playing quarterback for you, he's not that good. I feel like Brandon Graham needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror at Carson Wentz, because Ben DiNucci is not that much worse. And honestly, the Cowboys had a quarterback play last week in Garrett Gilbert, who has played better than Carson Wentz has at some points this season. That sounds ridiculous. That sounds hyperbolic, but it's the truth that last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Garrett Gilbert played better than Carson Wentz has at different points this season. We're going to get to Garrett Gilbert and the Andy Dalton conundrum, if you want to call it that, but let's go through some news. Trayvon Diggs, Dallas Cowboys rookie cornerback out of Alabama, it was reported this week, had a fractured bone in his foot, ouchie, and is scheduled, or slated, I should say, to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, given the time frame involved here, and given the fact that today is November 11th, and that we are already in Week 10, and the Dallas Cowboys are 2-7, it's possible that Trayvon Diggs' rookie season is done. It's possible that even if he is healthy come Week 15, come Week 16, whatever the case may be, that game is incidentally against the Philadelphia Eagles, that it's just not worth it. Trayvon Diggs does look like he is going to be a star cornerback in the NFL. Looks like he's going to be a future CB1, whatever you want to call it. And good for Trayvon showing out his rookie year. But if he's going to be on ice, he's going to be on ice. I think that's a smart way to play it. It is unfortunate that the Cowboys might not get to see him again until 2021. Trayvon did post on his Instagram story on Wednesday morning a photo, seemingly, of himself, his bottom half. Again, he's got that cast on, that boot, whatever you want to call it, as you can see on his left foot. And he's got a caption that says, "Be back soon." So get well, Trayvon. We're certainly wishing you all the best. We hope you are back soon because we love watching you play. We believe in your future, and we are excited about the fact that you are a Dallas Cowboy. But speaking of the Cowboys and speaking of the secondary, Chidobe Awuzie, who we have not seen since Week 2. All right, think about that. That was the first win of the season for the Dallas Cowboys many moons ago. Chidobe Awuzie this week was activated off of the injured reserve list, which means he is eligible to play next Sunday when the Dallas Cowboys visit the Minnesota Vikings. So, like two ships passing in the night, Trayvon Diggs out, Chidobe Awuzie in. It is worth mentioning that Chidobe Awuzie is in a contract year. So is Jordan Lewis. So is Xavier Woods. All the players that the Cowboys drafted in 2017. Shout out to the great 2017 draft class headlined by Taco Charlton. Definitely not a miss. Chidobe Awuzie is in a contract year. To me, if I had to predict the way this ends, I honestly think Chido is a great candidate because he is the best corner on the team right now. I know that we all like Trayvon Diggs, as mentioned. Chido, to me, seems like the perfect candidate for the 1 year, prove it deal, whatever you want to call it, in 2021. There's no question that this season has been a unique challenge in a number of different ways. Obviously, it's a bit of a lost year for the Cowboys on the football field. So it makes sense, at least it would make sense, if I was Chido, to say, you know what, I'm just going to run it back one more year. If Mike Nolan's gone, we'll have a better defensive coordinator. I'll ball out. I'll turn my 1 year deal into a long-term contract with whoever the case may be. The last Dallas Cowboys cornerback before Chidobe Awuzie, because we're not going to count Nolan Carroll. So the last one in Morris Claiborne did a very similar thing, signed a 1 year prove-it deal with the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys did not pick up the 5th year option on his rookie contract being drafted in 2012. And by the way, we're talking about Morris Claiborne, a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. So that to me does kind of feel like the way this is going to work out. So Trayvon Diggs out for a while, seemingly the rest of the season. Chidobe Awuzie should be back next week in Minnesota. What else do we have going on? It was reported today, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport's tweet is the person you're seeing on your beautiful screen. Ian Rappaport noted that the Dallas Cowboys claimed defensive end Ronald Carter, their old friend from the Indianapolis Colts, who released him, waived him, however you want to term it, earlier this week. Now, Ronald Carter spent the earlier part of the season, really the training camp part of the season, with the Dallas Cowboys before they moved on from him themselves. It was the Colts that picked him up. Shout out to Matt Eberflus, the former Cowboys linebackers coach, now defensive coordinator extraordinaire. I wonder if Eberflus is going to be a head coach in 2021. You do get the vibe. I would love to see Coach Flus end up, I don't know, at the Los Angeles Chargers. It'll be interesting to see if that job ultimately comes available, but really, really rooting for Coach Flus. But either way, Ronald Carter available, as mentioned. The Cowboys knew him quite well. They are bringing him back. That's good to see. This is the time of year, with the way the season has gone, to get snaps for the younger players. We saw that last week when Neville Gallimore looked fantastic against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So get Rondell out there, because you don't know what the rest of the season is going to have in store. You don't know what the offseason is going to have in store. You need to get snaps for your younger players. The rest of this season for the Cowboys is about two things, or really two words, one thing: data collection. You want to collect a lot of data about a lot of different players so you can make a lot of different decisions moving forward towards 2021. The other thing that Ian Rappaport did report on Wednesday afternoon, Dallas Cowboys defensive end, formerly defensive tackle, he has certainly played all over the defensive line in his time with the team, Tyrone Crawford, has been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Tyrone is the second member of the Dallas Cowboys to be placed on the reserve reserve COVID-19 list so far this season. The first one, Andy Dalton last week, as we discussed both here on the show and all over the podcast that we do at Blogging the Boys. And, it's worth mentioning, obviously there's no proof or scientific data to support this quite yet, but it was reported that several members of the Pittsburgh Steelers were placed on the reserve COVID list. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger among them due to contact tracing. Tyrone Crawford, obviously part of the Cowboys team that played against the Steelers just a couple of days ago. Again, no scientific data to support that there's a connection there, but all the best to Tyrone Crawford. We are certainly hoping that he gets well soon and that he's back with the Cowboys soon enough. We'll see what his future has in store. He's an interesting storyline to watch moving forward into 2021 as well. I mentioned that today is Veterans Day, and there is perhaps no more famous veteran when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys than the one and only Roger Staubach. As you know, Roger Staubach is perhaps the greatest player in the long history of the Dallas Cowboys, the team that is celebrating their 60th anniversary here in 2020. Roger Staubach obviously went to the Navy, part of the Naval Academy, won the Heisman Trophy there, drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, served our great country, and ultimately wound up with America's team, won a couple Super Bowls, ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the rest, as they say, is history. Roger Staubach was kind enough on Wednesday to join us on the Blogging the Boys podcast network. We talked about this in our post-game show here on the YouTube channel. It was a fantastic conversation. You can listen to it on the podcast network. You can look for the Blogging the Boys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are available on all major platforms. But we wanted to show you a couple of interesting clips. And I mentioned the great career, great life that Roger Staubach has had with regards to the NFL, and it almost didn't happen because of an eye test. This is a story that I had heard before, and so I asked Mr. Staubach about this. The eye test that he took upon his Naval Academy entrance exam really was a big reason why he wound up in the Navy, and obviously everything that followed after that. Here is that clip from our conversation with the one and only Roger Staubach.
Well, it really was. When I was partially colorblind, and I found out in high school, and I was taking my physical to go to the Naval Academy, and my eyes are really good. I was 2015, but they weren't paying a whole lot of attention, and I didn't. The colors, they had like the numbers that were in the dots, and some of the numbers I could see right away, and a few of the numbers just looked like the dots, and so I really didn't pass that very well. And the person behind me, who was a friend, said, you missed some of those. And I said, yeah, I'm a little partially colorblind. And again, it's because my physical was fine in every other area. I was able to go to the Naval Academy, and I'm not sure I would have been able to if I was being partially colorblind. So when I graduated, I was a logistics supply officer, and but I don't know how you heard of that, but yeah, it's one of those things in your life, because going to the Naval Academy was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
That really is amazing when you think about how an eye exam, is sort of the break point or the flash point, the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, with regards to Roger Staubach's life. Because if he doesn't end up at the Naval Academy, who knows what happens if he has the success that he does on the football field, if he ends up getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. I think we all have moments like that. Like we look back and, if I hadn't had this conversation, if I hadn't spoken to this person, if I hadn't said yes to that, if I hadn't said no to that. So really, really a kind of a powerful moment with regards to Mr. Staubach's life that I thought was really cool. Obviously, we talked to Mr. Staubach about a variety of things, about the fantastic work he's doing with USAA as a United States veteran. But of course, we talked to him about the Dallas Cowboys, and he reminisced on how he ended up with America's team. And it is a pretty amazing story.
Well, when I was a junior at the Naval Academy and called that second class, I was eligible for the draft because I spent 1 year in at junior college at New Mexico Military Institute. So I was drafted by both Dallas and Kansas City, and it wasn't a meaningful event because I had my first class year and time in the service, and I sure wasn't going to try to get out of the going into the service. So the Cowboys came and talked to me, and Gil Brandt and Kansas City did both, and so I signed a letter of intent that if I ever played again, I'd play for the Dallas Cowboys. And I didn't think it was a big deal. But Gil Brandt said, someday we think you're good now, and we hope that maybe you want to play professional football someday. And sure enough, that's what happened. I decided while I was in the service, which I enjoyed very much. I had a tour in Vietnam, and then I was at Pensacola Naval Air Station, and when I was down there, I decided I wanted to play again. So I took leave and went to the Dallas Cowboy training camp, and I really had a good training camp. And by that time I was 26 years old, and I still was young, and so I was in good shape. And they told me, they said, "Hey, we really want you to come back." And so that's when I decided that a year later that I would play for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think I kind of lucked out that Don Meredith retired that year, and so I played behind Craig Morton. If Meredith didn't retire, I don't know where I would have gone. I don't know what would have happened. But ending up with the Dallas Cowboys and Coach Landry, and I was just a lucky guy.
Roger the Dodger, Captain Comeback, Captain America, the greatest Dallas Cowboy of all time. Really a variety of nicknames for Mr. Staubach. We want to thank Mr. Staubach for taking the time to join us again. You can hear our entire conversation with him on the Blogging the Boys podcast network, available on all major podcast platforms. It was a really special experience to talk to Roger Staubach on Veterans Day among all days, and we do want to wish, again, a very happy Veterans Day to all the brave men and women who have served in our country. And so it's hard to go from Roger Staubach to Garrett Gilbert, but that is the case here in 2020 when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And Garrett Gilbert, I thought, played well against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Garrett Gilbert looked functional, looked competent, and had a Dallas Cowboys offense surrounded a Dallas Cowboys offense with competent quarterback play, which is something we hadn't seen in a long time. The Dallas Cowboys scored a touchdown, and I know that the bar is incredibly low at this point, but that's the reality. And so it's been an interesting debate while the Cowboys have been on bye this week, whether the Cowboys should play Andy Dalton or Garrett Gilbert when they return next Sunday on the road in Minnesota, where Roger Staubach had a nice day once upon a time himself in 1975. But I digress about the Hail Mary. And so it's a simple question. Should the Cowboys start Garrett Gilbert or Andy Dalton against the Minnesota Vikings? I'm about 99% certain in my take here. I think that, look, we mentioned it a little while ago. At this point, the most important thing this season for the Dallas Cowboys is those two words we talked about, data collection, right? At this point, my season, if I'm Mike McCarthy, is about developing CeeDee Lamb. It was about developing Trayvon Diggs. Now it's about developing my younger players as well beyond CeeDee, my Randy Gregorys, my Neville Gallimores, my Rondell Carters, my Reggie Robinsons. Put them on the field, please, coach. And so that is the purpose and the goal and the intent of this season at this point. Now, offensively, I think that Garrett Gilbert is the person that gives you the best shot at that. And I think that maybe that's a little bit unfair to Andy Dalton because we haven't seen a lot from him. Remember, we saw Andy Dalton at the end of the game against the New York Giants. Yeah, he led the comeback and the game-winning field goal, whatever the case may be. Had the whole game against the Arizona Cardinals. And I'll give him a little bit of a pass on that just because I think everybody kind of had these deer in headlights, sort of vibes going on with it being the first game without Dak Prescott. And then he got hurt in Washington. I think that Andy Dalton might play better with a Cowboys defense that's played more inspired like we've seen over the course of the last 2 weeks. And, we have heard from Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones during their appearances on 105 The Fan this week that Andy Dalton is the guy. And so I kind of disagree with that, but this is a Cowboys team that thought it would be wise to play Garrett Gilbert last week, and they were proven correct in that particular capacity. Dr. Forbin / Colossus on YouTube says, Gilbert. I have a hard time disagreeing with that assertion because Garrett Gilbert is the person who has played better so far. Of all non-Dak Prescott quarterbacks in 2020, Garrett Gilbert has looked the best when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. Let's take a look at the Cowboys' remaining schedule. Again, the Cowboys will be on the road in Minnesota next Sunday. That game will be very interesting given the fact that the Vikings are starting to kind of find their footing. And this is part of the other reason. I've said this already that I would not play Andy Dalton in Minnesota because the Cowboys have to turn around very quickly because 4 days later on Thanksgiving Day, they will host the Washington football team. Andy Dalton Dalton hasn't played in like a month at the point of these contests. And not only has he not played in a long time, but he is coming off of being on the injury report for having a concussion. He is coming off of the reserve COVID list. That's a lot of hurdles to overcome in general, let alone to do while you're trying to play 2 football games in 5 days against maybe 2 teams that are both in the playoff hunt. We've heard the NFL talking about various adjustments to the playoff format if there are games lost to COVID. Obviously, the Washington football team is in the mix squarely in the NFC East. We'll see what happens this week between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. But, hey, I actually think that Washington should be the favorite to win this division. I think that, Philadelphia, Brandon Graham's trash talk aside, I think that Philly is a bit of a paper tiger, and that's really saying something when you're talking about the NFC East. So I think that Washington, with Alex Smith as their starter, is certainly the team with the highest ceiling, which is a really weird way to put it when you're talking about any of these 4 teams. What's fascinating is that 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC East currently all have top 5 picks if the season were to end today for the 2021 NFL Draft. And on the subject of the upcoming draft, obviously the Dallas Cowboys season is lost. I know they could still technically win the division. We're not, that's fine. It's technically, literally, mathematically possible. But let's talk about the draft for a second, because at this point, like I said, data collection and earning a top pick. We all want a top 3 pick. We all want a top 5 pick, whatever the case may be. We want that pick to be as high as humanly possible. And the time has come for us to track this and for us to root for certain things. That's why last week was so awesome for the Cowboys. You had a great performance from all of your young players. You saw some competency on offense. You had a coaching staff that put together a game plan that was seemingly bought into by the rest of the team, and you lost. And I know you play to win the game, blah, 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 all the cliches, Varsity Blues, Friday Night Lights, whatever the case may be, but the Cowboys are getting closer to a top 3 draft pick, and that is a super important thing. So we have put together a rooting guide for you over at bloggingtheboys.com in terms of what to root for in order to secure the highest possible pick for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2021 NFL Draft. We'll be sharing this photo on our social channels throughout the week. If you want, you can take a screenshot right now so you don't lose it. But we are rooting for the following teams this week. We are rooting for the JETS, New York Jets. Get a dub. All right, get a dub. Stop messing around. Don't go 0-16. Keep Adam Gase around if you really want, but get a couple of dubs. We need you to get some wins, New York Jets. And look, you can have Trevor Lawrence. I really don't care. Push all the other players down, but get a couple of dubs because we need to buy some room for error. I don't like that you're so firmly entrenched in the number 1 overall pick, so we're rooting for the Jets over the Dolphins, although I think the Dolphins are going to win that game quite easily. Shout out, of course, to Byron Jones. Anyway, we're also rooting for the Jacksonville Jaguars to take down the Green Bay Packers, which sounds impossible because it is impossible. But the Jacksonville Jaguars currently hold the 2nd overall pick, again, in the 2021 NFL Draft. You can have Trevor Lawrence too. I don't care. But as long as you win a couple more games, give me some options. So go Jaguars. Get the dub. And I know this is really weird, but we're rooting for the New York Giants. Jason Garrett, please get it done. And I do think the Giants are going to get this game done. In our SB Nation NFL show, Pick'em, the show I host on Mondays, Monday Football Monday, I have picked the New York Giants to win this game, largely because I think the Giants should have beaten the Eagles last time they played on Thursday Night Football. If Daniel Jones hadn't fallen down, I mean, who knows how that game, turns out. So I think the Giants win this game, but for draft purposes, we certainly hope that they do so. Also, it's nice to see the Eagles lose, so come on, G-Men, get it done. We are rooting for the Washington football team and Alex Smith, like I mentioned, over the Detroit Lions. And finally, we are rooting for the Houston Texans over the Cleveland Browns, the in-state Houston Texans. And while this pick does not belong to the Houston Texans, it does belong to the Miami Dolphins because of the Laramie Tunsil trade. We still need them to to win. Because that Dolphins pick, we need that to just fall. The Dolphins seemingly have their quarterback issue solved. We need everybody who doesn't need a quarterback to get out of the way. All right, because the Cowboys hopefully are going to pay Dak Prescott. They can figure out something to do with this pick, and they can have the highest possible pick. But again, rooting for the Jets, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Washington football team, and the Houston Texans to win all in Week 10 while the Dallas Cowboys are on their bye. The Masters is on. I'm very excited. I have picked Brooks Koepka to win that. If you care about that, I don't know who you've got. Maybe you've got John Rahm. Maybe you've got Bryson DeChambeau. Maybe you've bought into that. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, it should be a fantastic sports weekend all the way around, all things considered. considered. So we hope that you enjoy it. We hope that you enjoyed this show. Subscribe to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel so that you get all of our wonderful videos. We put out film reviews, recaps, discussions, live streams like this. We're working hard around the clock to make sure that we bring you the best here on our YouTube channel. While you're subscribing to stuff, make sure you subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. You can listen to our interview with Mr. Roger Staubach among all of our fantastic shows. We give you an episode every 12 hours because things are always happening in the world of America's team. My name is RJ Ochoa. You know me, of course, from bloggingtheboys.com. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, and you can do me a huge favor, and you're going to have the absolute best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.
Blogging the Boys.